Civil disobedience and other nonviolent actions are a viable option for changing a perceived unjust society into a just one. We have seen this through our topic, Cesar Chavez and the NFWA marches. The March of 1966 was very successful at the time, even though it did not fully change the culture towards the grape pickers. Nevertheless, there were two boycotts that came after it, and through these three boycotts and the marches, Chavez and his union were able to help the migrant workers of California. Although the three boycotts were very successful, there are still long-term goals that have not yet been met. In the short term, these acts of nonviolence had great impact. Today, they still have a lasting impact. However, it is an impact that needs to be piggybacked by much effort.
California grape growers had faced serious persecution. They made $1.20 an hour plus 10 cents per lug or basket. They lived under very poor conditions, which included paying 25 cents for a cup of water, living in mosquito-infested and worn-down shacks without plumbing or a stove. All the barracks were segregated by race.
Chavez, a man who was born in Yuma, Arizona, became a migrant worker at the age of 10. By the 1960s, he was working in Delano, California. He could see the unjust life that migrant workers were forced to live. In response to seeing such a poor quality of living, Chavez formed the NFWA, or the National Farm Workers Association, which later became the United Farm Workers Organizing Committee, or UFWOC. Chavez's dream really took off in 1965 when AWOC, a Filipino labor union, with Larry Italiong as their president, tried to get higher wages for the workers in Delano. Previously, the union had succeeded in raising wages in Coachella Valley. However, in Delano, the growers refused to compromise. In response, 1,000 AWOC members chose to strike in opposition. Although NFWA was not a huge organization at the time, Chavez saw his opportunity and jumped on it. 1,200 Mexican-American members of the NFWA went out to strike for the migrant workers of California.
The workers went on strike at 30 farms in the area and also employed other nonviolent techniques in order to fight for their cause. Picketing was a common strategy that the protesters used. They would surround both farms and loading points of the grapes in order to stop other migrant workers from farming and companies from distributing their products. Additionally, Chavez encouraged the civilians to boycott non-union grapes. In boycotting the grapes, Chavez was able to hit the market from both ends. He caused the companies to have no supply and no demand. In response to these boycotts, the companies did raise the wages by a small amount and compromised on some other fronts. However, it was not enough. The quality of life was still too low, and the unjust societal treatment of the migrant workers was not rectified. Additionally, while the farmers were protesting nonviolently, the growers waged havoc on the migrant workers. One of the most horrid violent actions they took was spraying the strikers with pesticides that temporarily blinded the workers. This action, along with insufficient results of the protest, caused the workers to continue on their quest for equal treatment. They did this through the March of 1966.
In March 1966, Chavez organized a massive march of more than 230 miles from Delano to Sacramento, the state capital. This march would be the longest protest march ever in the United States. There was three main objectives with the march. The first objective was to pressure Democratic Governor Edmund Brown, who was up for election that year. This would pressure Edmund to do something about the situation because he wants the Mexican-American votes. The second objective was to win support for the strikes. Lastly, they wanted to gain public support by demonstrating the injustice of the farm workers. As the march wound its way across California, excitement built. Each town they passed through, they attracted new supporters. As more people joined the march, the media decided to take coverage on the protest. During the final leg of the journey, a Soloni Industries lawyer called wanting to sign a contract. Sanchez left to negotiate with the grape company Saloni and returned just as the group reached the state capital. Saloni's Industries had agreed to recognize the NFWA in Delano. After the protest in March, the farm workers finally got what they had been fighting for in a nonviolent way. The march's victory allowed the farm workers to get better pay and better living conditions, and before they decided to take action, march, and go on strike, the conditions for the farm workers were absolutely horrendous. This changed a perceived unjust society and a just one by helping out where people were struggling and needed change. So getting this contract signed was a major plus in the society they lived in.
Down the line, there was the boycott of 1973. The Great Boycott of 1973 helped pass a very important law, the California Agricultural Labor Relations Act. The boycott started after there was some conflict involved, a battle between the Teamsters Union that rolled back the gains the UFW had fought for. However, in 1975, Chavez found a political solution to the impasse by supporting Jerry Brown's bid to become governor of California. In return, Chavez was able to engineer the Agricultural Labor Relations Act in 1975. The act established rules and regulations similar to those of the National Labor Relations Act by protecting the right of agricultural employees to full freedom of association, self-organization, and designation of representatives of their own choosing, to negotiate the terms and conditions of their employment, and to be free from the interference, restraint, or coercion of employers of labor or their agents in the designation of such representatives or in self-organization or in other concerted activities for the purpose of collective bargaining or other mutual aid or protection. The passage of the act led to an overwhelming series of UFW election victories. However, the UFW had given up the boycott in exchange for the right to union elections, so eventually relying on the law became uncertain as growers learned to use it to delay signing contracts. Later on, the election of a Republican governor in 1982 made enforcing the law even more difficult. Over the years, the United Farm Workers Union became a political force showing that Mexican Americans can and will participate in politics when their concerns were at stake. Chavez didn't expect that victory in the battle for farm workers' rights would be achieved in his lifetime, and he definitely didn't expect that the first victories with Delano and other great producers would be followed by significant setbacks. In addition to the boycott of 1973, there was a 1984 boycott against pesticides. This boycott ended in 2000. Not only did it remove the pesticides, but it also demonstrated the ability of the unions. The unions are now powerful enough to negotiate with the growing companies.
Although Chavez was not able to achieve everything with his first efforts, he made a dent in the unjust society. What the UFW does today really impacts the area that it covers. Arturo S. Rodriguez, the successor of Chavez, says that today, where farm workers are protected by UFW contracts in California and some parts of Washington state and eastern Oregon, they enjoy decent pay, family health care, retirement plans, paid holidays and vacations, seniority, and protections from pesticides. Many unionized farm workers have broken into the lower middle class. Some own homes. Their children finish high school and may go on to college. However, life outside of this world is grim. Many workers are denied the state laws and are not protected. Rodriguez states that many times today's farm workers are cheated out of their pay, have few, if any, benefits, endure child labor, pesticides poisoning, sexual harassment, and sometimes the denial of basic needs such as clean water and restrooms in the fields. On a small scale, Chavez and the UFW accomplished many of their goals. However, in a broad sense, they did not change society. Although, as Chavez himself declared, that great changes do not happen immediately. The UFW and other unions still exist in today's world. If all of the unions are able to join together, there is hope that there can be further change in the farming world. The following clip is of Chavez speaking to a crowd on change in the farming world.
There's another place we can vote and be extremely successful, and that's the marketplace. You see, one of the great issues in our country is that the American public, you and I included, we want things fast. We want things to happen without too much work. That's why instant coffee is so popular. And it doesn't work that way. In real life, it doesn't work that way. Meaningful change takes a lot of struggle, a lot of time, a lot of dedication. That's what happens. Look at the struggles that have really done something in this world. Look how long it takes them. It doesn't happen by especially through rhetoric. It doesn't happen. It happens when people get out there, roll up their sleeves, and actually get the work done. And so we say, why go to the politicians? Why not go directly and vote at the marketplace where you can put direct pressure on those corporations that can find a solution for you?